I'm the founder of a company called Zelt. Yeah, we basically build software for people operations to make that simpler and easier. And before Zelt, I was a software investor. So I managed to, well, I had the chance to see a lot of different software systems and applications and yeah, work with entrepreneurs and operators over a number of years and just had a few insights there that led me to build Zelt. And originally from Germany, and I've been in the UK now for the last 10 years.
And yeah, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn and I see where things are emerging or where is a buzz appearing. And I totally got that sense when I heard and saw Zelt. You're definitely making impressions. So I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we help more people learn about Zelt and also get to see your product? So could you share the story of why Zelt exists?
hmm Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when I was an investor, we had a lot of activity in like the, let's say, boring business operations kind of verticals, and it's really big parts of software, right? And it makes sense because most companies now need a lot of tools to run their business. And one thing I noticed is that, you have these little Gartner magic quadrants, right? So it's like all these best of class kind of software. But there's more and more and more of these quadrants, right? And now basically the advice is, oh, you need all these best in class tools and all these quadrants. But 10 years ago, maybe there were 20, and now they're like 400. And companies now have more and more tools, really, to do not maybe the same things, but they're still companies. There's still companies of 50 headcount or 100 headcount, just like 10 years ago. No, just now they need all these different tools. And one thing that I found was that people don't necessarily want to have more and more tools. They'd rather do more with the same amount of tools or ideally even less tools. It's kind of like the iPhone, right? Imagine you'd be running around with an iPod and a video player and a phone and like a screen, I don't know, a DVD player or something. You don't want that, right? You want one system. And the idea behind Zelt is to create something similar for people operations. It's also now an emerging new kind of job category, right? So in startups, people aren't called HR anymore. They're now people or people operations. And it makes sense because people really touch all the different sort of aspects of your business. And that's HR, it's payroll and benefits, it's IT related, right? So people need equipment, otherwise they can't work. And rather than now having 4, 5, 6 different systems to run all these things, which comes with a lot of overhead and a lot of CSVs and emails and manual work, you can now do it in one system. That means it's simpler. There's not a lot of like duplication of data, so less spreadsheets and less emails with imports and exports. And you can now do things like self-service because now you can put like a set of permissions on it and you can have people do things themselves rather than sending an email and request somebody to do something for them, which really usually means clicking a button in some system, right? And yeah, basically it means you have less systems, it's simpler, it's quicker, and you spend less time on admin related to, people operations, so HR, payroll, IT management.
Yeah, and that's where there's so much willingness amongst people teams to spend to automate and put in tech the things that humans don't add as much value to so that we can focus on the more valuable activities helping people reach their potential in companies. So if products like Zelt can help with that, that's amazing. So if you could kind of just take us through or walk through um, to help us get a sense of the product.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm now logged in here as Chris Pringle, which is my alter ego on my favorite test account here. Keep in mind, this is a test account, so some of the things are pretty well set up, but others are sometimes a bit messy. But essentially, I'm logged in here now as an admin. That means I can do and see everything. You can see I'm here, the CEO. But a head of people would see a very similar screen because typically, those are kind of the super admins in the system. And this is the dashboard. It's fully configurable, right? So I can add any widgets here. I can move them around. I can add the stuff that I need for myself. And you see here now, for example, I have my action items here. So these are, for example, tasks that I need to do, right? So for example, I can have here a pending holiday request that I can approve from here. I can see that it overlaps with a few other people in my team. I can now go in and approve and reject it, right, to get through my tasks here. The idea is that we don't want to send you a dozen emails every day to remind you of things. You just come in here, once or twice a week, or maybe, as an admin, maybe more often, but employees come in here every now and then, right? They can see all the things that they have to do. They do it quickly, all in one go, right? And they can get on with their life and go back to work. If you have workforces that have, let's say, shift workers or irregular hours, right? Logging hours can be quite painful. So here we have an attendance widget. So you can see when you're working and you can directly log and clock your hours directly from here. And because we do payroll directly in the system, it immediately feeds through. So let's say you have worked 38 hours, right, this month. It directly goes through the payroll. Then no CSV exporting needed there. You can see I'm actually currently on my shift here. So let me just quickly go on a break here because I'm on a podcast. My calendar, of course, I can see when it's people's birthdays, when they're out. Right, it gives me a bit of contracts. I can send some congratulations directly from here. And I've added my time planner here, so I can see I have 21 days of holiday left, etc. So that's the dashboard. And then in the menu, just a quick overview here. So you can see 3 broad sections. This is kind of the directory section. So you have people, you have onboarding and offboarding. Regular employees typically would not see onboarding, offboarding, only maybe HR folks or people that are involved in onboarding and offboarding, maybe managers, for example. The directory, I would say no real surprises here. You can see who's in your company. You can, of course, add any data that you want here or filter by any criteria that you need. And you have an org chart, of course, and some insights into your team, right? So like things about headcount growth, diversity, you can set up some charts. Onboarding, offboarding, super popular section, right? So this is where you can do all your onboarding and offboarding, keep track of the tasks. You can assign different people in the different tasks that are required and monitor the progress over time to make sure that when people actually start with you, right, that everything that is done, needs to be done, actually is done. You can see it here for Adriana. I'm supposed to set up some apps. You can do that directly through the system. We integrate with all these systems here, so you can automatically create accounts. You can create a contract through the system here, right? So if you wanted to create an employment contract, you just click start, and it directly creates your contract in here with all the relevant information directly populated. You can order a laptop. So let's say you want to give this person a MacBook. You can choose from your inventory or order a new one, right? Let's say you want to give this person a MacBook Pro. You can order directly from here. We have an integrated rental offering. This is pretty popular, especially for startups where cash is king. You can rent it directly from Zelt. We'll take care of shipping and IT support. You basically just have to click the button and it will just arrive at the doorstep of your employee a day before they start working, or at your office. That's your choice. Any documents collection you can handle through here as well. We take care of payroll onboarding. We understand most countries internationally. So if you onboard somebody in the UK, we'll ask for their national insurance number, for student loans, for the legal gender, right? If they had a job before this year and if they know their tax code. And if they're in the US, we'll ask for their social security number, a bunch of other data that's required there, so that you don't have to worry about this stuff. We'll collect all this on your behalf. We also have an integration that's a fairly new feature here with Zinc, so you can do identity checks directly through the system, and you have a number of packages you can choose from. Standard checks means right of work check, and I think address check, and then there's some higher level checks like DBS checks, identity checks, education checks, etc. So you can automate all that through here, the system as well. Offboarding, basically the same thing, but the other way around, except now the system tells you what you need to do because Zelt knows whether the person has any accounts. So here it would list you, for example, if the person has a bunch of different accounts that they have access to. If there's any laptops that have to be returned, they're shown here as well. And here, for example, it shows you if the person has any remaining holidays, and you can then pay that out as a leave balance. Yeah, that's the kind of people section. Then we have these two sections here. In most HR systems, you will not find those. This is related to IT management. So here you can connect your different applications that you need in your company. For example, your Google, your Zoom, GitHub, HubSpot, etc. Once those are connected, you can actively manage access through them through here. In particular, during onboarding, you can automatically create accounts, and during offboarding, delete accounts. But you can also see in real time who has access at any given point in time. You can also take a look at people that have access that are not part of your company. This could be people you forgot to offboard, for example, and we send you also some reminders to reduce your risk of data breaches. If, for example, you spotted somebody here, right, that you forgot to offboard, you can go in here and delete this account immediately or suspend it. Or when you offboard somebody, you can schedule the deletion at a future point in time. That means you can get all the things done you need to do for offboarding, step away, and you can forget about it because Zelt will take care of it. A different view here is if I go to my profile and I go to apps, right, I can see now all the lists of apps that the person has access to. And especially doing offboarding, you could now schedule the suspension of those accounts. Devices kind of means mostly like hardware, computers. This is probably one of our most popular features. Here you can have an overview of all the different devices that you're using. So any orders that you've placed, for example, you can see here there's a MacBook Pro that's currently shipping to Chris Report, and you can track your order through here as well, right? So this is the UPS tracking link, and you can see I still have pending return here from Barack Borama. He still needs to return his Lenovo iPad, probably because he was offboarded. Here you can see all your laptops and their risk state. So there's an MDM in here. That means Zelt communicates with your devices, and you can do things like making sure they all have a password. You can make sure that there's firewall on it. You can restrict iCloud syncing so people don't leave you with a bunch of company information on their personal iClouds. We give you information about storage, OS versions, and you can push updates through here as well. Should you ever have a loss or somebody, let's say you terminate somebody, you put them on gardening leave, you can lock and wipe the device directly through here over the air, and that means you have extra protection about your company data, especially during offboarding of employees or in the case of a loss. All your inventory you can manage through here as well. So let's say you have a MacBook spare here that you want to ship to somebody, you can just go and here assign it to somebody and ship it to somebody through here. By the way, we take care of all the logistics as well, so we courier it out on your behalf. The store already shown, so in the onboarding section, but you can also go to the shop here at any point in time. And for example, let's say you need a new monitor or a new mouse or keyboard or a new, let's say your laptop broke, you can go in and order a new one and ship it out. Standard models we ship usually within 24 hours. Some more advanced models take maybe a few days longer, but generally you can help yourself here pretty quickly. Then there's a whole section here around compensation. So you can run your payroll here. Right here, for example, you can see my one of my companies. Here's another company. So it does multi-entity, multi-schedule. This is a monthly payroll. This is a weekly payroll. And you can go in and calculate pay slips and make payments in real time. So you can see here now my November 2023 payroll. It shows you all the changes and additions and deductions. You can go with bonuses, for example, directly through here, or do your expense returns directly in here in real time. And when you process the payroll, it creates your payments, and you can actually make those payments also directly from here. So let's say you had 3 people that need to be paid. You can select those payments and send them directly to your bank. And we have integrations with most major banks, so you can you don't have to manually type in those payments or do any CSV imports and exports. That can create mistakes or could leak if you send it to the wrong person via email. You can make those payments directly from the system, and your employee data or payments data never leaves Zelt. And that is an extra level of security. You can also manage your benefits through here. So you can see here I have all my enrollments in my workplace pension, in my health insurance, right? If you have any sort of custom benefits like book budgets or WeWork access, you can manage that through here. In the personal view, so when people go into their Zelt account and they go to benefits, right, they see all the benefits that they're enrolled in. And they can make some choices. For example, here in pension, they could go in and change their contribution settings and, for example, increase that if they wanted to. Then finally, there's a large section here on HR-related things. So these are all the regular things you would expect in a enterprise-grade HR system, like maybe HiBob or Personio, right? So you have here your requests and balances. In the settings, you can configure your policies. And we go to a very high level of extent of configuration here. So this works in almost any country around the world for any kind of edge cases, right? Prorating, accruals, approval rules, you can configure to what you need. And of course, we also integrate with Slack and Google Calendar, so you can access that through the calendar or Slack directly as well. For example, you can make your approvals directly in Slack. If you have, I mentioned that before, people that are working on hourly contracts, maybe you can track that through here and do your approvals through here. You have a calendar where you can subscribe to, let's say from your Google or Microsoft. You have documents where you can collect, show, but also create documents. I showed that early in the onboarding flow. You can set up your templates here, and that could be an employment agreement or a contract agreement, or maybe you want employees to sign certain policies. You can set them up here as templates, and they look like this. They have these placeholders. so you can automatically create them and inject that data when you need it. So if I now use this employment contract for Alina, for example, right, then employee first name will be populated with Alina. You have, a tasks app for requests and tasks, which you can generate as a one-off, or you can also use checklists to generate them automatically. And then there's a whole section here for growth. This includes performance reviews, for example, and surveys. So you can, for example, do your employer NPS through here, or your performance 360 reviews, and a reporting section where you can set up your custom reports. And I think we're running slightly out of time here. So I think I'll make a stop here and see if there are any particular questions, or otherwise I think it gives you a good overview of the system on a high level.
This is so cool. It feels like we found this box and we open it up and it's like, wow, this light comes out, discovering what's in this box. It's amazing. Congratulations on what you've built in your product so far.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Um, yeah, so many questions. I'll just ask a few for now. Um, I can really get that sense of you described how rather than having so many different places to go, it's bringing it together so you have one place to do many things. And it with all the shift towards employee and people experience, that's dependent on people operational things, IT things, and so on. And I can see how Zelt brings it all together. If we look at some examples, so with the devices, ordering the devices, um, how does that happen? Like, who owns the property? How does that happen?
hmm So we're trying to handle, so all the technologies that we use, we try to build in-house as much as possible. And also when it comes to, for example, the device rental service and logistics, we try to do as much as possible in-house. And we do that so that when you have a question or you need support, you only deal with us. Not because other people don't do it well either, but it just helps with, well, it's less confusing, right? Because frankly, your employees will not understand the difference between now Zelt or maybe some supplier that Zelt uses to do some stuff. So when you buy a device from us, we actually buy it onto our account, right? So we source it, and we have an inventory as well of the most popular models. Yeah, we then just ship it out, and we have different partners around the world because of customs. Unfortunately, you can't just ship a device where you want it to be, right? So if you want it in the US, you can't just go and ship it from the UK to the US. That will take you 4 months and like cost you $400. So we have then partners in different countries so that we can source and ship directly through there. And I didn't mention that, but we also do remote warehousing. So let's say you offboard somebody and you don't want to go and take the laptop and store it in your apartment or your living room because you don't have an office there. We can store it in the locations as well. It shows up in your inventory, and then you can redeploy it when you need it.
It's amazing how much you take care of. And then how does it work with pay? Do you partner with
Mhm.
payroll providers to deliver that, or is that yourselves?
It's directly in the system. So when you click that button, right? So start on November payroll. It takes in the current data in the system. So if there were any compensation changes, right, it picks that up straight away. And whatever is the current state of the data, so it takes the current tax codes, the current compensation. If it's hourly workers, it takes the hours that we work in the period, I mean, payroll is basically a calculator, right? It throws that data into the calculator, and it throws out the taxes, the national insurance, the pension contributions, and the PAYE. Um, and yeah, you can then finish the payroll right there. And then finally the payments. Yeah, so some companies also split the payroll from the payments because maybe it's the CFO or the founder that maybe makes the payments. So let's say the HR lead or the somebody else could actually do the checking of the payments and going through line by line to understand all the changes, can process it, and processing really means fixing the amounts and creating the payments, and then the actual execution of the payments could be done by somebody else, whoever has access to the bank account, and that could be on the same day or it could be the day after. That's quite flexible.
And if the company hires people through an employer of record, um,
hmm
I saw I saw one on the screen. Does the company not need to interact with that EOR each time? They just manage it through Zelt.
So it's a mix. So it depends on the type of integration. And there are some EORs that are building the APIs to be able to allow that in the future. So remote.com, they're going to this direction into like embedded EOR, and we're one of their five integration partners on the HR side. And it's still early days for the APIs, so it's only it's fairly new still. But right now, what you can do is when you onboard an employee in Zelt, Zelt knows that it's an EOR because you set them up as an EOR. And if we know that remote is your EOR system, we will automatically send that record to remote and it will show there. So that means you already reduce the risk of forgetting to onboard them, for example, right? So they will already exist there as a record and you can sync back and forth the updates. So let's say somebody takes time off or updates their bank account in Zelt, right? We sync it to remote. And the future of this will be that you will not have to go into remote at all anymore to click the button of, for example, fixing the payroll. You can do that through Zelt. And that's more like a gradual thing. At the moment, right, we've done the first step, and hopefully in the future it'll be even more embedded.
I've got just two questions I think left. So, if a company already has um, like a system for some of their core people data, and they might have a different system that deals with growth and performance reviews. They might have a different system for payroll and things like that. If they were thinking, oh, it would be so nice to work with Zelt because there's so like it's you're bringing so much together. How do they go about making that shift from multiple to one? Do you kind of start with Zelt in one area and stop using one, or do you suggest that they move all of their aspects to Zelt at the same time, or something else?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I would say the value of a platform, just in general, not just Zelt, but also other platforms. For example, CRM is a good example. I would say the more functions you put into the platform, the more valuable it gets for you. Because, I mean, software is a bit like cars, right? And cars are awesome, but there's a reason why all of us don't have five cars, right? They cost a lot of money, they break down, you have to maintain them, right? You have to change their wheels all the time and get certificates and stuff like that. And software is a bit like that. So if you can afford having just one or two cars that fulfill all your needs, it's better than having five. And I think people opt software is a bit like that. If you can put a function into the platform, and then maybe Zelt or maybe in the US maybe Rippling, right? It's valuable to you and the business. The question is that other tool that has all the features, right, that you need, does the platform have those features? If the answer is yes, I would argue you put it in there. But if you need some very, very specialized, very specific things, right, there may be some things that we can't do yet, and then maybe it makes sense to keep that external system. If you do an employer NPS survey and it's pretty, a simple survey, then there's probably no need to have a separate tool because it has downsides, right? Now people have to log in there, they have to remember their password. When they change their browser, they don't remember their password, so then they have to reset it. Guess what? They're not going to do that. They're just not going to fill out the survey. Well, if it's in your core system, people will have to log in because they want to book holidays, right? They need their pay slips to get their mortgage or something. So they'll make sure that they have access and they will keep the data up to date. And if then the survey pops up as they do that, it's a natural place to do so. And yeah, it reduces the mental effort of employees to, right? It's easier for them to engage with one system than with four different ones.
Yeah. So if somebody was thinking, okay, yeah, I want to learn more, how can they get in contact?
I mean, you can send me an email. It's CKP or Chris as well, Chris at Zelt.app or CKP at Zelt.app. We have a website, of course, as well, Zelt.app, and you can book a demo, and likely I may pop in there. It's not just me anymore, but I'll keep an eye. When you put in Culturevist as in where have you heard about us, I'll make sure to join. But yeah, send me an email, for example, CKP at Zelt.app.